ginekolog, ti lečiš ljude. Tako kao on
Good evening, everybody.
Hello, Professor.
Hey, Marcel.
Hello, Professor.
Hi there.
How are you doing, Professor?
I'm okay. How are you doing?
Good, thank you.
Excellent.
Hello, Professor, and everyone.
Hey, Ina. I see Asha in the chat. Hi, Asha. I'm just getting everything ready here. I'll start to share my screen in a moment, but all right. Week four, you guys. The semester already feels very long to me.
How was your day?
Okay, you know, computer. It's my life now, so.
Hey, classes? You teaching today?
No, today, this is the only class I teach, but because I only have one class to teach on Tuesdays, it's a lot of grading, you know, all the other stuff. So, but that's okay. Again, you know me, I'm trying not to complain.
Yeah, but you.
That's too much computer. I just don't like to sit at a computer, but that's okay, you know, so it's all good. How about you, Ina? How you doing?
I was with mom, took her to her appointment, go around, like I just got home.
Yeah, exactly. See, I don't want to complain. I know everybody's
Yeah.
everybody's working on something. I know that.
Yeah, my baby is crying. I got her tablet because she not let me study. I mean, like.
Yeah. Well, thanks
No.
for being here. We'll do our best, you know, we'll just keep doing our best, you guys. I see some more people coming in. Hi, Sadaf and Quinn. Parisa's here. Just a few, just saying hi as people come in. Liz, hi, everybody.
Hi.
Hi.
Hello.
Everybody is quiet.
I know. I swear this is my idea right now is that everybody's already tired. That's what I mean. It's
Yes, it's been a long day. You're right.
Well, and how are we going to do 16 weeks? I was saying this to the other teachers, like Asha, you know, I work in the lab. Some of you know I work in the lab. Everybody feels this way, right? It's not, you know me, I'm not trying to be negative, but everyone's like, oh my goodness, it's only week 4. What is going on?
Seems like it's longer. Yeah, yesterday I thought I had the wrong Zoom meeting and I was like, oh, I'm sorry, Professor. I might be at the wrong place.
That's it. Yeah, Asha saw me in the lab. Yeah, I this is my, the semester is 16 weeks. I just feel like instead of in a new semester, usually it feels like, okay, week 1, week 2, week 3, maybe because of the pandemic and, everything is still locked down and people, masks and stuff too. It just, instead of feeling like week 4, it feels like it's all been one long semester and it's like week 65 or something. And I just need like,
Wow.
you know what I
A
mean?
breather.
It's just exactly, it's like a treadmill, it's just never ending Zoom class,
Say, hey,
Oh
Hey,
my
came my
God.
baby. Hi.
Little one. Oh my God.
yeah.
She's so cute. How old she is?
Teeny, 3 or 4 months? How old? How old is she, Henry?
Oh, sorry, I didn't hear you.
Oh, 3 or 4 months? How old is she?
No, she's already 7.
Okay.
Yeah, 7 months old.
It's a good
Pretty,
time.
pretty
Yeah,
cute.
thank you, guys. Thank you.
Enos thinking about her daughter. Yeah, 7 months is
Yeah,
good.
my daughter, she already like 3 years old, man. Like she tried to show her character. She never wants it in car seat. I'm tired and I can with her. When she today's in childcare, I'm just like racing. Finally.
I
But
know.
anyway, I'm not racing. I go do mom appointments, that like, everywhere. But like she's like too much energy
Yeah,
over me.
I understand. Perfect. I'm going to start to issue. Well, thank you, Henry. It's always good to see people's families and people who want to. It's really, really cool. I know, like I said,
Thank you.
it helps us to remember, like, yeah, there's other people here. They're nice. They have families and stuff. It's all good,
Yeah.
And then we'll get started here. All right, I'm going to start to share my screen. I saw that Zabi said hi in the chat. Hi, Zabi, and Manisha is here. Rahimi is here. So again, just saying hello as people come in.
Hey, everyone.
Hi there. All right. Well, we will get going. Let me just make sure I have the chat open here. So if anyone has questions. All right. All right. And you guys can see my screen here, February 8th. You see what I see?
Yes.
Cool. I can see Candy
Yes, yeah.
nodding. That's great. All right. Welcome. I think, like I was saying to Ina, or for the people who are here, it's really good to see you. I still cannot believe it's only week 4. Too much computer, maybe. I'm already tired, but that's okay. We'll keep going. But here we are, Tuesday, February 8th, week 4 of the spring semester.
Only 12 weeks more, Professor.
Don't even say it. Don't even say it. Oh my goodness, I know. We get spring break though. We do get a spring break this semester, so that's good. The fall can, without a break, the fall can feel very long. But here's the plan for today. I've got a couple announcements, just more information about grading that I got to finish today and then publish those or put the scores into Canvas today. And then we'll continue with summary and response writing. And then today I'm going to introduce the narrative structure, right? And before I say too much about that, just let me say at the beginning, when I talk about the narrative structure, I want to show you this sort of, what do I want to say here? I want to show you and talk about narrative structure before you start reading this book, which we're going to do, right? This is tonight. I'm going to give you the first reading. I'll give you the first reading assignment. And I want to show you about narrative structure because I want you to be able to identify and recognize some of these features, some of the parts of this structure when you're reading the book, okay? So that's what we are doing tonight, and we'll see how fast we can go and yeah, how we do. All right, so just another update about grading. I'll try to do that every week. So as I say here, I've graded lessons 1 through 8, except for lesson 7, which I'm still finishing right now. Lesson 7 was the quiz about why translation matters. And I'm just thinking about how I want to give points for that last question where you had to write a little bit. So that's why I'm not done with those yet. Now, I have also posted some replies in discussions 1 and 2. So again, please complete the discussions as soon as you can. I think we only have 2 people who posted in discussion 2, so don't be shy. And our lesson today will help you, hopefully help you feel more comfortable to do discussion 2. That's lesson 9. And then I put 2 new lessons into Canvas. I will grade lessons 10 and 11 before our Zoom meeting next week. And this is just like we talked about last week, you guys, but if you got a 0 for an assignment that you did not submit yet, and you're going, Jeff, what's going on? Why did they get a 0? There's no due dates. No problem, right? Do those lessons as soon as you can. I can see in Canvas when you submit a new assignment or something that you haven't done yet. I'll go back, look at it, and give you your points. Again, my just warning for any of those lessons that, lessons 1 through 8, I will try to grade them as soon as I can, but usually I grade the newer lessons first and then go back to look at some of the older ones, okay? So all of this is basically the same information from last week. I just wanted to sort of give you an update about where I am and what I am working on. Any questions at all about grading? Hopefully this makes sense. We talked about it last week.
Yeah, may I say something?
Please, Henry.
Yeah, thank you. There was a question in lesson 7, and I can't remember the exact number of question. It was something like, so is it, as author says, is it necessary is it necessary for writers to write on English to get some rewards?
Yes.
Yeah, and so can we discuss a little bit about that? I thought the author says the writers not when need to write on English, when need to be presented where work on English.
Yeah, I mean, if it's a specific question, I just don't want to spend too much time, Henry. So maybe if you have a question and you aren't sure, can you email me or text me, and then I can either send you an email or we can talk about it, just because we have a lot to do tonight.
Sure, thank you.
And again, this is true for Henry or for anybody. If you're going, Jeff, I don't understand this answer or anything, please, I am happy to talk about it. It's probably just going to be faster to do that one-on-one. So even if we just email, that's fine with me. But yeah, so I want Henry to know, and other students, right? I'm not saying, Henry, don't talk about that. I'm just saying, send me a message and then we can talk about it one-on-one.
All right, thank you.
Of course, anybody else with sort of big picture or general questions about this? Oh, Parisa, I saw your little yellow hand.
Yes, I have a question regarding my last my last assignment. It was lesson 2, my welcome letter. I had a problem with MLA formatting. Then I resubmitted again. So I think you said you grade all lesson 1 to 8, yeah? But
Yes.
I didn't receive any grade on this assignment yet.
That's about this sentence, Parisa. So I will grade these later submitted assignments. So revisions or things that you resubmit after your first score, I grade them after the new lesson. So I promise I will give you your points. I will look at it, but it's just going to take a little time.
Okay, thank you. I thought it was, I am wrong way again.
No, I was going to say, no, you did not do anything wrong. It just, like I said, I'm always trying to grade the newest stuff first, but then I will go back. Usually that's on my Friday, or okay. I try not to be at the computer on the weekend, but sometimes. So, so it just depends when I can get to it. Okay, Parisa?
Thank you.
Of course. Cool. All right, again, if you have an individual grading question, any points or something on your own lesson, let me know. Send me a text, send me an email. We can talk about it one-on-one. Okay, and I am now going to put a link into the chat. So if you are on your computer and you can open this, it would be great. So in the chat, I am putting a link to a very, very short survey inside of Google Documents. And this is just our ESL department website at ARC. It's a very short survey just to ask about how students are feeling about online class or on ground in-person class for the fall, okay? Now, this is totally optional. You don't have to do it, but it will help me. It will help the department so much if you can. It's very short, right? All you need to do is your first name, your last name, your W number, I forget my W number, and then which reading and writing. So of course you're in R325 right here. And then if you're taking a grammar, maybe you're in 310 or 320. And then if you're listening, or if you're not, right, you can just choose I'm not taking a listening. But the most important question that we are trying to make sure that we understand for all of you and all of our students is this last question. So it says, for fall 2022, ESL classes might be online or on ground. What kind of ESL classes do you want to take in fall 2022? On ground, online. So we're probably going to have a choice. Maybe you can take one online, one on ground. We're going to have options, but this is sort of just asking you, if you have to choose one, which one would you want, right? So the more people, I'm going to show this to all of my classes, and I'm going to ask all of my students to do it. So if you can, if you have time, it will really help us so that hopefully, you know, we can make sure we have good options for both online and on ground classes for.
Yeah, excuse me, which level comes after this level?
Say one more time.
Which
Yes.
ESL level is after this
340,
level?
340 ESL after 325, after our ESL 325, the next class is W340 or just regular English 300, right? Because this ESL class is right before what's called transfer level English. And at ARC, we have two ways to do transfer level English. One is regular English, native English speakers, you know, lots of high school, you know, Americans who graduated high school, for example, take English 300. Or again, I've said this before, but one amazing thing about our department, ESL department at ARC, is we're so big that we have a transfer level class to talk about research and academic writing in our ESL department, taught by, you know, ESL professors. So I'm teaching 340 in the fall. And we're trying to,
Yeah, thank you. What is a 350?
350 is if after you pass 340 or English 300, ESL 350 is a literature class. I'm teaching that class this semester. That's about books, novels, stories, poetry, and it's not a requirement, but it does transfer. Both ESL W340 and ESL 350 transfer to CSU and to Cal State schools and to the UC schools. So you need W340 or 300 no matter what. You need that to graduate from ARC, right? 350 is a class you don't have to take, but you can transfer over with you if you go to Sac State or UC Davis or UC Berkeley or wherever.
Thank you.
Yeah, and if you have more questions about 350, we can talk about it near the end of the semester, because honestly though, Henry, if you're in this class, that's 2 semesters away, right? That's this class, 340 or 300, and then 350. So you've got some time to think about it. Cool. So like I said, the link's in the chat. I also put it for my people who are watching on the recording. Hello. I also put it in the live support materials page right here where it says ESL department survey about online classes in fall 2022. So I'd really appreciate it if you can do it. I'm going to close this tab. Cool. All right. So yeah, that's it. Any ideas, any questions, or just I've got my materials here to finish up about summary and response, and then I want to talk about narrative structure, and if we have time, we'll do an example. But I'd love to hear just from anybody, any questions in general, questions about the class so far, anything, just big picture questions before I get started, or should we just go? Let's go, Jeff. Sure.
Professor,
Yeah, Didia.
I only want to ask you something. I'm confused a little bit about the assignment, and I thought that I have to as a summary and then a response. And then I realized that was only a response. So I made the two things and I only submit the response, and I put also more than 200 words. So
I like that.
I made that, yeah.
No, I like that. I like that. Again, the 200 words is the minimum, right? The more I totally believe this. The more you write, the better, the faster you get better at writing, period. So, 400 words takes more time, but it's good. It's good to do it. So that's totally fine, Didier, and you're exactly correct here. So I think Didier is talking about lesson 9. And remember, before you need to click reply and to type what you wrote here before you can see other people's examples. Okay, so maybe that's why no one has posted yet except for Didier and one other student. But don't forget about lesson 9, right? It'll look like this. You won't see anything until you post your first response. So thank you, Didier, for being brave and going first. But Didier is exactly correct here, right? So as I say, write a 200-word response paragraph to the Grossman quote below, and be sure to follow the structure reviewed in class and use proper MLA, blah, blah, blah. Now, again, the lesson that I have for tonight is to get some practice with this exact quote. Okay, so hopefully Didier won't be too bored since she did hers yet. She already did hers. But if you did not do yours yet, this will be good. Tonight's lesson and practice will be good to hopefully help you feel more comfortable and confident to get started. And just like Didier said, we're only doing response right now. We'll get lots of time to practice summarizing all semester long. So no problem at all, Didier. And yeah, I can't wait to, well, I read it already, but I'll look at it in more detail too. Anybody else before maybe we should just get started, huh? Draga?
Professor Jeff, yes. Okay, I don't know if you had a chance to read an email I sent to you last night, because we did an email in MLA format, lesson 9, but we didn't know how to send it, how to put it like in comments, or send it directly to you as
Oh no, any discussion, I see. That's why I said to you, Draga, I thought you just wanted me to look at some of your grammar and stuff. So you can email me the document, but for this assignment, for all discussions, right? This is discussion 2, as it says here. You could type your answer right here and then hit post reply, right? And then after you do that, now I can read Didier's response, right? Now I can read Marisa's response. I'm going to go back and delete test student here. So if you wrote in a Word doc, Draga, all you need to do is just copy and paste it into this, I'm going to delete this and go up here just like last time, reply.
Okay. So I can just copy and paste.
Yep,
okay.
That's it.
And did you have a chance to see it, because it is more than 1,000 words?
No, I emailed you back to say, please email me the file, but because I didn't get the file when you messaged me.
I did it. I did. You probably didn't see that. Okay, it's pretty long. Like talking about my something different, comparing with what we read in this text. Okay, so I was talking about something totally different, opposite than that. So I thought it might be interesting to you and to other students to read it.
I'll look at it. I'll let you know. Yeah, you got it. All right, let's get going for today, since a couple questions at least about this discussion number 2, and that's what the lesson that I wanted to talk about today is about, right? So just a reminder here in the PowerPoint for tonight, I'm just putting a sort of reminder, these same slides from last week, basic information about the summary and the response, sort of how we write this type of essay or this type of writing. And remember what we're going to focus on today. And, in a couple weeks, I'll ask you to practice both summary and response together. But for tonight, we're really just going to focus on response, because usually that's what is new for students at this level. You guys usually have lots of summary practice. So remember, when you're responding, what do I think or feel about the main idea in this reading? Do I agree or disagree? Do I think the author did a good job explaining these ideas? Why or why not, right? And what we were doing last week at the end of class is we were sort of using a little bit of active reading skills, a little bit of vocabulary skills to make sure that we understood what we were going to respond to, right? Because this is, again, something I know I said last week, right? If you read something and the assignment says, okay, respond to this reading, and if you don't understand the reading, don't even start typing. Don't even think about writing, right? Because if you don't understand what you read yet, you're honestly just kind of wasting your time, right? So I thought what I wanted to do here is do the similar activity to last week. We can identify a few different key vocabulary words, try to sort of summarizing, but not writing the summary down, summarize the ideas, and then see if we can get to some kind of response, right? So in these slides, you guys, all I've got is these sentences here, by the way. These are the exact same sentences that I have here in discussion 2, okay? This is the thing that I'm asking you to respond to here in Canvas. That's what we're looking at on this slide, okay? So I'm gonna read this and let's do the same thing. Let's find, this is just one sentence, by the way, for my grammar people. You know, I'm thinking of Draga, but not just Draga. Do a sentence analysis of this sentence. My goodness, clauses and phrases. I want to identify 5 or 6 vocabulary words. I'll give you some time to look them up in your favorite dictionary or translate whatever you need. And then together we'll come up with some kind of summary or paraphrase for each sentence to make sure that we understand the idea, right? So I'll just read the first sentence here. Maybe you saw it, maybe you didn't. You will see it when you do lesson 9. This says, the unique factor in the experience of translators is that we not only are listeners to the text, hearing the author's voice in the mind's ear, but speakers of a second text, the translated work, who repeat what we have heard, though in another language, a language with its own literary traditions, its own cultural accretions, its own lexicon and syntax, its own historical experience, all of which must be treated with as much respect, esteem, and appreciation as we bring to the language of the original writer. Oy, oy, oy. So I'm going to just right away go ahead and choose accretions. Again, most native speaking Americans won't know what accretions is. Lexicon and syntax, very similar. These are linguistics terms. What else? So those are my words. Let's choose 3 or 4 more, and then I want to give you guys some time to look words up here. So what other words, before you think about responding to the idea here, what do you need to understand in this sentence?
Professor, excuse me, STEAM, could you
Good.
please? Yeah.
Good. I was gonna do that, but I thought one of you would say that too. Yeah. Anybody else?
Yeah, I think we should understand the main idea.
Good. Well, I'm happy with that because I was going to say there's no yellow words that we're worried about here, you know, before accretions. So let's just look at the first half of this sentence and make sure we understand. So she writes, Edith Grossman is a woman, she writes that the unique factor in the experience of translators is that we are not only listeners to the text, hearing the author's voice in the mind's ear, but speakers of a second text, the translated work, who repeat what we have heard, though in another language. Now we're sort of, again, practicing both paraphrasing and summarizing here. But what is she saying here at the beginning of this sentence? What is she saying?
She says, hello?
Yeah, go ahead, Henry. And then I'm not sure if it was Didi after that. Go ahead, Henry.
She says the job of translators not just translate the words, but also translate the idea of the work in the language which we are translating, you know.
Okay, nice. Henry went right to the sort of main idea, which I love. How about again, let's just stick, this is a little bit, again, good paraphrasing practice. Just this part of the sentence. The unique factors in the experience of translators is that we not only are listeners to the text, hearing the author's voice in the mind's ear, but speakers of a second text, the translated work, who repeat what we have heard, though in another language. Let's stop there. And again, you don't have to paraphrase that. We don't have to go word for word, but Henry, I'm not disagreeing with you, but I'm forcing people to practice here, to find the meaning sort of sentence by sentence, right? Because at the beginning of the sentence, what's she saying here? Just this part. Go ahead, Didier.
But the translator are not only listener, and I want, well, if you, Professor, can help me to understand a little bit the voice in the minds here. That I kind of try to understand exactly what that means.
Yeah.
But if we can discuss a little bit this phrase in specifically, I will love it, please.
Yeah, I think again, this is what I mean about this reading being the hardest one all semester. You know, it's because she's talking about big ideas, complicated ideas, and she's using advanced sentence structure, and she is an author, right? She thinking about 350, the W350 class that I teach. It's a little bit like literature, right? So she uses some metaphors, she uses some sort of literary features that give this deeper meaning. So it's almost like the author's voice in the mind's ear. It almost, to me, feels like artistic, right, Didier? It's almost like, of course, we understand that there's not an ear inside of her brain, but I think she's showing us this, like, I mean, it's kind of artistic, right? It's kind of a metaphor. It's kind of like, and that's what I mean about how this is a good example of what college reading is like, because you get all of these different things together. So I'd say that one, thank you, Draga. So I'd say that's the best answer, Didier, is this is one of those moments where she uses an image, a metaphor, a symbol that feels almost more like a fiction, a novel, than like an essay. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, because I don't think she's literally talking about it, but I love it. Did you finish this for me? Because it was a great question. Translators are not only listeners, comma, they also what?
They also are translated. No, it's a speaker.
Yes.
Was translator to another words.
Good.
The text.
Good. However, and finish this for me, Didier or anybody, they listen in one language,
but speak in the other one. The same thing, which is really, I have never thought about that, but it is really fantastic to know. I was reading this text so many times until I got what it talks about, and it's really important to know how difficult translating is. So because translator doesn't translate word by word, so it's not, I could do that. Anyone could do that.
Yes. Google will do that for you now, Draga, you know?
Yes, and you can just like polish it a little bit, you know. But if you actually would like to add the spirit of the original piece, then you have to know how to translate it to the language you're translating. So to bring the same thing in different, with different words, maybe some changes, but to understand the same way as it is in original piece.
Good, I love it. And Draga said one of my favorite things from a student is like, oh, I didn't think about this before, or I thought about this in a new way. That's, my favorite thing as a teacher. So that makes me very happy. I agree with what Draga said. It connects to what Henry said. We're gonna type another sentence here and sort of make sure we finish the meaning of the sentence. But first, I saw Liz's hand and then Sadaf's, and then let's finish this first sentence. Liz, please.
As she said, I understand that when we translate something, we have to take in account what is lexicon, syntax, and I don't know about what is accretions, but I think that it means, like, as you said, Google can translate, but it has not only mistake in the grammar, but also Google don't know about the context of each language. So when you translate, you have to hear the author and you have to know what the author could wants to express and find the words that could express that.
Excellent, excellent, Liz. I love it. So again, Henry brought this up at the beginning. Draga mentioned it. Liz is adding. I think you're all. I'm happy. You're on it, right? You're all kind of on it. You kind of get it. Good, because once we get it, we can respond to it. Sadaf, what's up? Oh, she put it in the chat. Maybe Sadaf. I'm going to read what you wrote, and then if you want to say more, please do. In the chat, Sadaf wrote. She mentioned translators are, or translating is not only hearing or translating word for word, it's like understanding and communicating. I love it. Right now we're kind of up on the main idea for this little sentence here, right? Accretions is another one of those things like Didier was asking about the mind's ear. Accretions is kind of a sort of a literary a metaphor here. But if we go to Learner's Dictionary, why not? We can. We have the internet. An accretion, it's a gradual process in which layers of material are formed as small amounts are added over time. So the rocks formed by the slow accretion of limestone, right? So again, very strong image or metaphor here. And it gives us, so of course, she's not talking about rocks, right? Or the formation of the earth. She's using this in a sort of metaphorical way to talk about how cultures build over time. Liz just used the word context, right? Like the cultural context, sort of. You could look up the meaning of a word, or you could Google translate word for word, but you might not understand the culture, the background of how people actually use that word. Really nice. Good. And then I see, sorry, I'm just typing in the chat. Okay. So let's finish this first sentence here. So when it says, so translators are not only listeners, they also speak. However, they listen in one language but speak in the other. What would we say about this? So she says, now, this is, I'm going to say, U-N-I-Q-U-E. Up here, she uses the word the unique factor in the experience of translators. Someone want to give me a synonym here for, how do you think she's using unique? What does she mean?
Very unusual.
Good. Unusual. Anybody else?
Like every,
Like special.
Go ahead, Draga. I heard a few people. Draga, what was your word?
yeah. So I would rather explain. Unique is something that nothing is similar to that one. So the only one. So Didia is the only one. Like the way
Like special.
Good. And I saw, perfect. I was when I know you didn't say this, Draga, you didn't use a synonym, but listening to Draga, I heard the word singular. Singular is basically the same meaning that Draga was saying there. Marisa and Marzia, excuse me, Marzia and Sadaf wrote special, Asha wrote special. I love that, right? So this is unusual, this is special, this is singular, because the translator must understand. And how could we say this? Its own literary traditions. Like, what? Someone give me another way to say its own literary traditions, cultural accretions, its lexicon, its syntax, its historical experience. What could we say about this? Like, translators must understand what about their second language?
Syntax.
And you know,
the soul of the language.
Ooh, wow. Wow.
The
The soul.
original.
Go ahead.
Oh, soul. Oh, no, it's okay. So, yes, the original soul.
Yeah, I mean, I was it Henry? I'm not sure who said soul, but I love this, right? The soul. What else could we say? Anything similar? I was gonna say just meaning.
Yes.
You know, So again, as you're thinking about how to make sure you understand what you read, and again, getting ready for summarizing and paraphrasing this semester, this activity, I know sometimes it can feel painful, so slow. Oh my God, Jeff, one word at a time, one sentence at a time. But this will really help you get this skill, right? Of reading,
Yes.
understanding what you read, summarizing, paraphrasing, getting ready to write about what you just read. It's very important, right?
Professor, I don't know if it's here, but I noticed that translator, when they are translating, even writing and speaking, they
Yeah.
translate about the age of the listener. For example, if a child wants to read something and someone give translation, use words that the child will understand. And if it's older, maybe we'll change the words with the same meaning, but the words that people can understand with the age, context, and also maybe if the person has a study or not.
Yes, education.
Yes, that.
Yeah, I love it. So I'm going to add to what Liz was saying there. I'm just going to add to the soul and meaning of both languages and the people who speak those languages, right? So I love it. I love it. I love it. I see a couple more hands, then we'll look at the next sentence. Didia, please.
Yes, Professor, I think that the translators must have a perfect knowledge of the language, and they are translating the properly convey the original author ideas in order to plus and express correctly, and also put his background to explain all the context of the script. I think.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I keep hearing that word context, which is such a good word. I love that word. I'm going to add that here to understand and respect the soul, the meaning, the context of both languages. So I love it. Again, I'm happy because we're going fast because you guys understand it and you're ready to talk about the big idea, which is great, which is great. How about the next sentence? We'll do the same thing. It's much shorter, this one. So our purpose, let me make sure I have a place to write here. Ay, Dios. Hold on. There we go. Okay. She writes in the next sentence of this paragraph, our purpose is to recreate as far as possible within the alien system of a second language all the characteristics, vagaries, quirks, and stylistic peculiarities of the work we are translating. Now, again, I can imagine characteristics, maybe not, but vagaries, here's just more good vocab building for you guys, right? Quirks, peculiarities of the work we are translating, right?
Professor,
please,
sorry,
Liz.
I don't understand also alien, the alien system.
Yeah, let's look it up because again, more like literature, right? Like more like we'd see in a novel or some creative writing. Alien can mean lots of things. It's not just like the space alien from Mars, right? That's the noun.
I was thinking of that.
Of course, right? We're thinking of the spaceship, But again, that's a noun, right? Aliens, these, we can imagine, or maybe, I don't know, whatever. Some people believe, there's aliens all over the place. That's a noun, right? Things, people, aliens. Adjective here, notice, this is more good vocab, you guys. The adjective form of alien is not familiar or like other things you have known, different from what you're used to. So she felt lost in an alien culture when she moved to the city, right? So alien in this case, when it's an adjective, might just mean different or new or hard to understand at first, right? And I'm going to make sure I identify this for my grammar people. Notice that the alien system. So she's saying a different system, a new system, a not native system, whatever it may be, right? So vagaries, quirks, stylistic peculiarities. Honestly, you notice one thing that she does really well. Again, this is more just me giving you reading suggestions. Academic writing. I saw this in someone's writing in this class when I was grading this week. I forget. If I remember, I'll send you a note. Academic writing loves lists, right? All the characteristics, item 1. Vagaries, item 2. Quirks, item 3. And stylistic peculiarities, item 4, right? Academic writing loves to include these long type of lists. It's a very, and I saw Asha says foreign in the chat for alien. Really nice, Asha. You know, these words won't mean the exact same thing, but it's helpful, again, reading strategy. If you kind of get the idea of what the first word is, it's pretty safe to assume that these words group together, right? So vagaries kind of means what's hard. Quirks kind of means what's unique and different. Peculiarities and quirks, I think, are almost the same thing. But the idea here is we're talking about the characteristics, right? What the language is like. I made a mistake here, excuse me. There we go. Okay, so what's the meaning here, you guys? Translators, let's say purpose, since that's the same word she uses, is what?
Recreate.
Yep. And how about recreate? Some just good practice for synonyms and paraphrasing. What's recreate? Someone give me a different word. Did you?
They can use their imagination to create and try to put the ideas in different words.
Mm-hmm. And can you give me a similar word or a synonym for recreate?
Reproduce.
I love it. Draga says reproduce. Anybody else? Remake, rewrite. I will say, I think that this re is a really important prefix though, right? Because the idea is they're not just making it for the first time, in a way they are, of course, but there's this idea of recreating something. So I like reproduce, remake, rewrite. All of the things that are, yeah, please.
Can I explain in one, maybe it will help people to understand something. So in music, let's say Bach wrote so many music pieces for organ, and there are people who recreated doing the same, like rewriting the same piece, but for different instruments, like for violin, viola, cello. So same piece, but totally different.
Nice. Cool. I love that. Again, that's a nice metaphor, Draga. Yeah. So same notes on a, you know, same notes, but for different instruments. So it's the same, but it totally changes, right? I love that. I love that. Yeah. And again, the good news, so I agree, Draga. I love that metaphor. And I think most people are sort of, you're here with me on the main idea. And this sentence is much easier. So again, if we're putting it a different way, the translator's purpose, the translator's goal, the translator's whatever, idea, goal, job, right, is to reproduce, remake, rewrite all of the things that are special or unique about the original text, right? The original book, the original work here. You guys with me? I know the people who are talking are with me, but I see Sadap is saying innovation.
Here. I'm here.
I know. Oh, good. I know. I just want to make sure if people have questions or want to add anything.
Because my baby's noisy, that's why I don't want to open my mouth.
Oh no, Ina, it's you know you never need to explain yourself. It's all good. There she is. Okay, so the translator's purpose, goal, job is to reproduce, remake, rewrite all of the things that are special, unique, innovative. Sadaf said innovation. I'm going to use the adjective form there, Sadaf. Innovative about the original text or the original work. Love it.
Can I tell something, Mr. Jeff?
Sure, Draga.
Okay, so a certain composer, Mussorgsky, a Russian composer, he wrote very famous music piece for piano, pictures at an exhibition. But another composer, Ravel, French composer, after Mussorgsky's death, he rewrote it for orchestra. And now you can read, when you listen for orchestra, it says Mussorgsky, Ravel. So you can see both names, okay? And the other ones for orchestra is now more famous than the original piece.
Yep. Cool. I love that. More interesting examples from Draga. Yeah. Manisha, you have anything to add or about this sentence?
Professor, there's a quick question for me.
Yeah, please.
So
please.
about the words, like you said,
characteristic, if I'm not wrong about the pronunciation, like the
Yes.
words back to back. So what can help us to know like they're almost the same, like they're similar to each other? Do you think it's the comma, or how we can find out about that?
I was saying the list, and you're right. The comma, if I was not clear or this is not clear, I think that when it says this, what characteristics is a noun, right? All the noun, comma, noun, comma, noun, comma, and adjective, comma, adjective, noun. This is a big clue again that you've got a list, and academic writing loves lists of things. Often lists of nouns, but not always. So that's sort of that's my suggestion. Thank you, Manisha, is when you see a list like this, and it's connected by the conjunction and, very high possibility that the author is using nouns or ideas that have a very similar meaning, right? So you're right. How do we know something is a list? The commas. So close together, right? The commas so close together, and commas that aren't connected to a clause, an independent or dependent clause. So like I said, there's an elided of here for my grammar people, right? So I'd say prepositional phrase of the characteristics, and then noun, noun, noun. So that's a big clue. That's a big clue. And even, of course, Manisha, and even if it's not just single words, nouns, man, next week I'll show you some examples of where this comes up in A Map Is Only One Story. You're going to see it. You see lists like this in academic English all the time. Yeah. Becoming aware of structure, right? So again, notice, speaking of more lists, we get those same words, right? Characteristics, vagaries, quirks, peculiarities in the second language. So we sort of know, again, as a strategy, you don't need to worry about these words too much. We already got that. So let's make sure we get the main idea in this sentence. We're almost at the end here. So, and we do this by analogy. That is by finding comparable, not identical. So this word, these two words really, are very important. First of all, what's an analogy? Let's go to the dictionary.
Analogy is something or a situation similar that maybe express or explain something.
Good, I like that. The only thing missing there, Liz, was this important word, a comparison of two things based on their being alike in some way. So he made an analogy between flying a kite and fishing. And the meaning here is he compared flying a kite to fishing. He said that flying a kite was like fishing, right? Or the act of comparing two things that are alike in some way. So you use an analogy here to compare two things that are alike in some way. That's what she's saying, right? That's what she's saying here. So we do this by analogy, by comparing two similar things, that is finding comparable but not identical characteristics. So how about comparable here? Anybody look this up or know what it is?
They are similar and maybe shape or meaning or size or gender, but not exactly same.
I love it. Perfect. Used to say that two or more things are very similar and be compared to each other. And good, Marzia says similar but not the same. I love it. So a comparable refrigerator today would cost a lot more than the one I bought 10 years ago, right? So, okay, it's a fridge. I have a new fridge and a 10-year-old fridge. They're not exactly the same, but we can compare them, right? They're comparable. So, and translators do this by finding, give me a word for comparable, another adjective like comparable.
Close.
Good. Anybody else? Close is good.
Similar.
That's the word I was thinking of. By finding similar, and let's go back to what we use here. Similar things. Yeah, we said things, aspects, characteristics, whatever. In the second language. However, and I'll just show you an example here. So again, I'll just, and I'm going to put this in Canvas for you guys to review, but more different ways that you can practice summarizing or making sure you understand the main idea here. So, and translators, oh, this shouldn't be possessive, excuse me, just plural noun. And translators, and translators do this by finding similar things in the second language. However, similar does not mean identical, right? I think that's pretty much the main idea for this sentence. And our last sentence that you're going to respond to in the discussion is here. We're back to another long example here. Let me make it smaller so everyone can see. So repeating the work in any other way, for example, by succumbing to the literalist fallacy and attempting to duplicate the text in another language following a pattern of word-for-word transcription would lead not to a translation, but a grotesque, such a great adjective, variation on Borges's Pierre Menard, who rewrites his own Don Quixote that coincides word for word with Cervantes' original, though it is considered superior to the original because of its modernity. So right away, when you see something like this, Borges, Pierre Menard, Don Quixote, Cervantes, I don't care if you don't know who these people are, but right away, do we have some understanding of what she's talking about? Like, is she talking about a new idea? Is she giving us some specific examples? What is she doing in this sentence? I'm thinking of Manisha's question now, like, how do you know, right? How do you know? Well, Borges and Cervantes are very famous authors. Yeah, please, Liz.
Yeah. Okay. I think they are talking about the first authors, the original authors or novels or something like that. Good. And the second edition, like, I don't know how to say in English, like when someone write about a book similar or a reference or critic or something of the original and how respect and use the words.
Yeah. Criticism, yeah, so criticism. So Liz said a lot of great things there, and Asha, I saw in the chat, said giving examples. Liz said, right, these are famous authors, and maybe you don't know Borges or Cervantes, that's fine, but hopefully you see, right, more reading strategies, Manisha. Capital B, Pierre Menard, these look like names, right? Don Quixote is the name of a very, one of the most important books in human history. I don't know what to say about Don Quixote other than, it's a very important novel. But these are examples, right? These are proper names or titles of books. So even if you have no clue what Don Quixote is, you see, okay, Borges, Pierre Menard, it's reasonable then, reading strategies here, to think, okay, if she's talking about people or critics or books, these are probably just examples. Now, that doesn't mean you shouldn't try to understand, but remember, college level reading, if you have an author who introduces the main idea in the beginning of a paragraph and then does an analysis of that idea using examples later in the paragraph, when you go to summarize or when you go to respond to the writing, the main idea is way more important than any of the examples that the author provides, right? If that makes sense. I heard, did someone else have a question or idea or examples?
Actually, I wrote Don Quixote because it's Spanish, and I have to use a dictionary all the time, even it's my language. Yes. So I cannot imagine that book translated in English.
Yes. And now Liz is, again, Don Quixote is from the 16th century, right? I mean, like, so this is like Liz was saying about not just that when you're thinking about translation, imagine you're at the doctor's office, right? Who are you talking to? How old is the person you're talking to? Old or young? How much education? All of that we need to think about when we're translating just in 2022. But of course, if a person's translating a book, then this idea about how long ago something was, what grammar and vocabulary were people using 300, 400, 500 years ago. Like you said, Liz, this is a big challenge. This is a very big challenge. Luckily, you don't need to worry about that. And you know, most of the students here at ARC that I work with, we want to be medical translators or maybe work in the law office or something like this. But and that's already very difficult. But yeah, what Edith Grossman is talking about here is even more kind of crazy, right? Like translating a book that's 500 years old. Yeah, how do you do that?
I think that the more common example of this is the Bible, because it has been translated in many languages and people is not agree in what is the original meaning. And
yeah, Liz, I could talk about this a lot because in the past I've done this was because we have so many Christian students and Muslim students. You know, I love talking about this translation because of course the Bible is the most translated book in the history of human life, right? I mean, it's translated in I don't want to say every single language, but hundreds of languages, right? Whereas for our Muslim students, a key idea in Islam is that the word of the Quran is the words of the Prophet, right? So often the Quran is not translated, right? In Islam, it's really, even if you don't speak Arabic, people usually read the Quran in Arabic because there's this idea about we don't want to lose the original meaning. So anyway, Liz, I love that example. And because we have students who are both Muslim and Christian, and both of their sort of sacred books have a really interesting connection to translation because I agree. I agree, Liz. It is very interesting. Didia, yes.
Professor, as an example, I want to let you know, I want to see your opinion about it, is
Sure.
that the meaning of the Grossman speech is that the translator must be a creator because they need to improve and use different words about one text and have to create and in a maybe similar but not the same way and create things, different things about the lecture. But I don't know if I is not correct, but I think that this one of the things that the author said in the passage.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right. And I think, again, a lot of people were sort of ready for the main idea right at the beginning, which is excellent, right? And I think you're right. I think you're right, Didia, is I think that this is her opinion, right? Now we're going to talk about how could we respond to this. Maybe you say, this is wrong. I totally disagree, right? But her argument, her idea is, it's not your job to translate a language word for word. It's your job to translate ideas, feelings, right? Meaning, right? And to do that, you kind of have to understand both languages, and then that's it, right? And then that's the magic, right? Because if it's just word for word, then that's what she literally calls a grotesque variation. Grotesque just means really bad, really ugly, you know? So I think you're exactly right. Yeah, Draga, question or idea?
Okay, so translator needs to bring the spirit of the literature. So not only, as we said, word by word, but the spirit. If it's something funny, it must be funny in translation again. If it's something serious, so it is really sometimes difficult to find appropriate word to translate something. Maybe sometimes translators use totally different words, but the result is the same as in original piece.
I love that Draga there was talking about like that. I was gonna, when Draga said funny, that made me think about like tone, T-O-N-E. And again, that's kind of like you were saying, Draga, and like I've been saying, that's kind of about feeling, right? Like if I say this book is so funny, I can't say, oh, show me the funniest word in this book. Well, I mean, maybe there's a funny moment or there's a funny sentence or something, but really that's not how we read, right? That's like a feeling, right? That's like you were saying, Draga, like everybody, like Draga and Didia have been saying here, it's about this feeling, this deeper meaning instead of just word for word, right? Tell me exactly what it says. I love it. So again, I'm just kind of going through this quickly for the summary example so that we can get to thinking about how to respond to this. So, but we just did this together. Again, we went very slow, but as an example of, if you go back to our Canvas page and you look at this paragraph, right now, you can look in the PowerPoint or you can watch the recording if you're watching the recording again. We did a pretty great, I think, example of summarizing and paraphrasing, because here's what we're going to say the meaning of this paragraph is in our class's words, right? Translators are not only listeners because they also speak. However, they listen in one language but speak in the other one. This is unusual, special, singular, because the translator must understand and respect the soul, the meaning, the context of both languages, comma, Jeff, and the people who speak, and the people who speak those languages. The translator's purpose, goal, job is to reproduce, remake, rewrite all of the things that are special, unique, innovative about the original text or work. And translators do this by finding similar things in the second language. However, similar does not mean identical. It is important not to just repeat the original text word for word, because this is not true translation. It is a grotesque variation. Then she gives an example of a famous word for word translation of Don Quixote. This, you guys, again, I'm like I always do once a week or so, I'm planting the seed for you to remember. This is like classic summarizing activity, you guys. You don't need to talk about her opinion about Borges and Pierre Menard and Don Quixote and what she said. In a summary, it's enough to say, then she does this, right? Like she talks about this other famous book, and that's all you need to say, because the reader is going to understand, okay, the student read this example, they saw this, they saw this in the original text, but it's not that important, right? It's not one of the main ideas here. Okay, so here's our meaning, right? Here's our meaning. We've got that. Now, remember, if we think about a summary, your summary is we did the summary. Sorry, everybody. The response. Now we're thinking about response. What do I think or feel about the main idea in this reading? Do I agree or disagree? Do I think the author did a good job explaining them, or why not, right? And remember, we need to begin our summary with something like, I totally agree, or I totally agree, or totally agree or disagree with Grossman when she argues, and then we need to give our summary, right? Then we need to give our explanation. So let's think about a response. How could we do this? Let's try and come up with some examples of responses. You can share your answer out loud. You can type it in the chat if you'd like. But here's the idea. Here's what we just read. And I'm saying to you in discussion number 2, respond, right? Respond to this. So what could you do? What could you do to write a response to this? I'm going to put this in the chat. Maybe it'll be easier for you guys to do it in typing here. I'll leave this on the screen. And then if you open up the chat, I'm typing in the chat. Give me 1 second. So just as a sort of template, right? Like I was saying last week, a structure, a format, a way to begin your response. Let's say we've got something like this to begin with. Everybody, when for this assignment, right? For the discussion activity, everybody's response can begin with this sentence. That's fine with me. Let's get some examples. But I totally agree or totally disagree with Grossman when she argues. Now we need to summarize the argument, her main idea. What's that main idea?
Do not translate word by word.
Okay.
I think that it's about, as my classmates say, don't translate word by word like Google does.
Mhm.
Do a translation with same or maybe same information and maybe more little details in order people can understand.
Mm. Got it. Okay.
Can I
So
can I tell what I wrote in my
yeah,
lesson 9?
please. Yeah.
Okay, so this is what I wrote. I agree with Grossman when she claims that a translator is not only a listener of the author's text who hears his or her voice, but also someone who thinks and speaks the same idea but in different way because of language. I have never thought, okay, this is something else, yeah.
Oh, Draga, is that word for word from the original? Can you read it one more time for me?
Yeah. I agree with Grossman when she claims that a translator is not only a listener of the author's text who hears his or her voice, but also someone who thinks and speaks the same idea, but in different way because of language.
Good. Yeah, I think the only thing missing there, Draga, and I can't type as fast as Draga can talk. The only thing missing is when you talk about language at the end there, make sure you say the other language, the second language. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Because that's an important main idea to get into that first sentence is she's talking about both languages, right? Trying to keep the meaning, even though the words are going to change, you try to keep the meaning in the second language. But really nice. Draga did a good job there, everybody, of she didn't just copy and paste, right? Of course, she didn't just quote, use the exact same words, but did a really nice job sort of re-saying the topic sentence here, at least the first half of this topic sentence. Really nice, really nice. Now we're getting there. We're halfway there. Anybody else? Anybody who has got examples. I want to see your examples. Anybody else with ideas?
Professor.
Yeah, please. Yeah, Didia, please.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I want to read a little bit what I am right, but I don't know quite sure it's correct because I maybe don't. I only put the thing that the author infers, not exactly said. Can be possible to do that or not?
Like
because I use about the creator, but not exactly. Obviously, I use all the things that the author says, and I put it in some way, but exactly no as a word by word.
Yeah, that's fine. So you want to say, instead of saying argues or states or claims, you want to say, like, you don't want to say, you want to say something like infers or suggests or something like this? Is it just the verb you want to change or?
No. I mean that I try to put not exactly the words that the author says.
Yeah.
But what she infers. I mean, the author said that the translation must be a creator because a lot of things need to happen. So for that reason, I start saying that I agree with Gosman when he said that the translation becomes the creator, but I don't know if I did it.
No, that's great.
Well.
No, that's great. Suggests. I was going to say implies or suggests. You're right. She doesn't say in this paragraph, she doesn't say all translators are true artists, but there is an implication, right? So I think the only question I was asking Didia was infer and imply. If you're reading something and you understand the meaning, then you infer. The author is the one who implies, right? So when you say, I totally agree or disagree with Grossman, when she implies, suggests, she doesn't say this, but she implies it, right? That translators must be creators, something like this, right?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's, this is again, super famous for native speakers too, Didia, infer versus imply. One is just about the subject and the object. That's all it is. I'll send this link in the chat with an explainer about it. Very common, very common. Great. Okay, So let's go with Didia's here as an example. We've got great ones on this, the first slide here. But let's look at this because we've got almost all of this, right? We've got, I totally agree with Grossman when she argues that. And remember, now we need the second thing. We need, I agree because, or, you know, we need to follow this up, right? So I think Didia is saying, I agree with Grossman when she suggests that translators must be creators. I agree because, what you got, Didia? You're muted. Wait, come back. We can't hear you, Didia. I'm sorry. I could
Sorry,
see.
sorry.
No, she
I
was in the
think
zone.
that,
Yeah.
well, I said, well, when she said that translation becomes the creator, I think that way because two main reasons. First, the translation must have a perfect knowledge of the language they are translating in order to proper convey the original author's ideas. In this sense, the translator must find a way to do it using their culture, language, experience, and feel the same way as the author.
I love it. And I love Didia. Thank you so much for giving us your example. Didia is still in summary mode a little bit here. You're still sort of saying an idea that was in the original, right? And which is great. That's what we're practicing. But response is to get to you, where you talk about why you agree or disagree. Now, here's where you can use your own examples, your own idea, your own experience, right? You can talk about your own self, but that wonderful sentence, which from what I heard, the grammar sounded good, the meaning is great, the ideas are great. That sentence is a little bit more on the summary side than the response side right now, right? So I'll just ask you, don't even read me what you wrote. Didia, you agree, why? Can you give me an example from your own life where you had this experience, either your own experience or someone else you know? Like if I say, Didia, why is word for word translation bad? Just tell me your reason.
Well, I have never thought about how difficult it can be to translate, and I read Don Quixote, but in my experience, I never thought how it could be reading in another language.
Okay.
And also how to second reading could be better than the original.
Okay. Got it. So that idea is almost like before reading this, I'll type this out sort of as I'm sort of thinking out loud. And Manisha, I see your hand too. I'm ready for people's examples. Before reading this article, a chapter, whatever, I never thought about how difficult it would be to translate a book like Don Quixote. I have read Don Quixote in Spanish, blah, blah, blah. And now just as an example, Didia, about with a response, remember, you can do I, me, personal examples, right? So that's absolutely a way that you can start doing a response post about anything, right? And that's why we're starting with kind of small examples here. I love it. So Didia, and this.
Can I say one example when I have a chance?
Yeah, can Manisha's hand was up. So let's go to Manisha and then Draga, please. Manisha and then Draga. Yeah, Manisha.
Professor, my experience as an interpreter is always like, I can say for you to answer your question, like word to word translating is very difficult for like the person you're trying to translate it or interpret. Like always they need to know the short answer and the main idea. So if you try to like translate word to word, it's going to be very difficult for them because they're hearing you with a different language. They're just waiting for you to hear what is the main idea, what is the exact words that you're trying to explain to them. I think it's always like, I do agree that translating word to word is not like the when you're trying to translate it, it's not good to like translate it word to word.
And then Draga, I'm coming to you, but I'm trying to just sort of summarize Manisha's great points there. Oh, I totally agree with Grossman when she suggests that translators must be creators and not rely on word for word translation. I agree because I've had many experiences in my job as a translator. In my experience, people who are listening to translation are focused on the main idea, the most important information. So it's not helpful to speak or to try to find a perfect word. I'm repeating word for word a little bit, so forgive me, this isn't perfect, but word for word translation, something like this, right? But Manisha did a great job there. Again, you can go back and listen to what she said or my very short summary, but she did it great, right? Because each sentence after this first, again, just to show you template, right? After this sort of template, I totally agree with the main idea, and then I agree because, and then it's all Manisha's experience, thoughts, opinions, right? When she shares her opinion, her own evidence, her proof is just her own ideas, her own experience, which is really good because in some essays, you're not allowed to write I, me, mine. You know what I mean? A response is one of those times when you can write about your own experience. Draga, please, I'm ready. If you're there, maybe you're muted, but I can't see, I don't know.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes, I was muted. So I'm not sure if it will be appropriate, but I would like to say how it is important. This is according to my experience, how something impressed me when I, for first time, had just one single different word. Okay, I don't know if any of students ever read First Book of Moses, and it talks most of the time of one character whose name is Joseph. He is a picture actually of Jesus. Okay, so I will try to explain quickly. So he was sold in Egypt by his brothers as a slave. Okay, and then they came to visit, not knowing, because he became by the time very, very famous. He was the first one to be Pharaoh. And when they came, he didn't appear, he didn't tell them who he was. Okay, and then he served food for all of them because they were his brothers, but they didn't know that. Okay. Okay, so this is what happened. In Serbian translation, it said, I will tell you, it says that he served a dinner, like any food. Yeah. But in English, and when you read original, it says that he served a bread. And that single word opens my eyes for something which is amazing, that dinner was actually a picture of Jesus' Last Supper with his disciples. If you understand what I mean. So to serve dinner is not the same, because Jesus took a bread, at the Last Supper before his resurrection, and it opens my eyes for something which is great. So Joseph was with his brothers at the table as Jesus with his disciples, and all other details then open my eyes to recognize only because of this single word, which helped me to understand and to compare two same things, but one like 1500s of years before Jesus was born and before it happened.
Right. Good. So again, Draga is giving us a really good personal example from her own experience about how one word, right? How translating one word can be so important, not just because, bread is a different word than dinner. Well, no, because when you say bread or when you say dinner, that gives a different, bigger meaning to the entire story, right? So I think, Draga, that's a great example, absolutely, for what we're talking about here. Yeah, yeah. Let me start to share my screen again. I think I stopped sharing for a second. Okay, so I'm going to keep sort of Manisha's. We have so many good examples, you guys, and I'm going to put these in Canvas. So they're here for you. If you're watching the recording, they're here for you to review. But I'm going to just keep this one up on the screen for a moment as I ask, because this was sort of our combination with Didia's topic sentence and then Manisha's examples here. So I totally agree with Grossman when she suggests that translators must be creators and not rely on word-for-word translation. Perfect topic sentence. I agree because, now we're talking, because I have had many experiences in my job as a translator. In my experience, People who are listening to translation are focused on the main idea, the most important information. So it's not helpful to try and find a word for word translation. For example, last year I was working at a hospital. I'm just making this up now. Okay, Manisha. I was working at a hospital in Sacramento, blah, 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 right? This would be a great time to keep going and provide an example connected to the reason that you give for agreeing or disagreeing, right? So this is sort of like a perfect template for how to write your response paragraph for discussion number 2. Zabi, I see your hand.
Yeah, I have an experience, teachers. I want to share with yours.
Sure.
When I was come in 2018 in the United States, so I was go to the dental hospital. So and there was the doctor is it means it's not do with me like not respected or not make my tools. So we have small problem. After that, I talk with the insurance and I take a translator. Then we several sentences I say for the translator to say translate for the insurance. The translator say just, oh, the hospital just not just ignore this or like not help it, those people. But I say several sentences, just you say for several one or two or just like this. But sometimes it needed, I think, in my opinion, before the main idea, main idea, but the translator said there's some specific word that use it or some sentence like explain it more the main idea of that.
Yeah. So perfect. So Zabi is giving us an example of, I agree because I had this experience, right? I had this experience. It showed me whatever, translation's important or keywords, right? Maybe the translator knew the magic word in the dentist or the insurance or whatever. So absolutely correct, Zabi. And even if you did Google Translate word for word, maybe you didn't know this very important noun or adjective for insurance billing in the United States. You know what I mean? So I think that'd be a great example to include in your response, Zabi. Absolutely, absolutely. So, and just a transition here now. If Zabi's thinking about what he wants to write for discussion number 2, or any of you guys, this is what we're doing, right? This is what I'm asking you to do. Discussion 2 is the first time I'm asking you to sit down and type it up, right? So again, hit reply, type in the chat. If you've got it in a Word doc, copy and paste. But, practice this same format that, we came up with together as a class, because this is what I'm asking you to do. I know we could keep going, but I do want to make sure I show you the structure of narrative writing to get you ready for reading. But any questions at all about discussion number 2? Any questions at all about, hopefully everybody now knows what to do and how to do it. So if not, now's the time to ask. Didya and then Draga.
I already submitted, so can I submit it again if I have to change, because I don't know how to do it?
Sure. Oh yeah, if you want to change, so I'll just say, this is my test. Yay, I am so happy, whatever. Okay, here's my post, 9 words, under 200 words, you guys. So now I can see yours, right? I see Marzia's. Here's my comment. Marzia deleted it. So you would just click up here on your 3 dots, did you?
Yeah.
And for it'll look like this. You'll get these choices: 3 dots, edit.
Oh, got it.
That's all you do. And you can do that for any discussion in Canvas too, unless the teacher turns it off.
Thank you.
You got it. Draga.
I didn't know that still now.
Professor Jeff, last night my husband and I were arguing regarding quotation.
Uh-oh.
So according to what he learned before, okay, he tried to convince me that I have to quote, but I said, you said not to quote, but to tell with our words, right? So we are not supposed to quote anything.
You don't have to. You can, but you don't have to. Yeah, exactly. This you'll see me talk about MLA in-text citation anytime this semester. That's just this, you guys. In-text citation just means after a quote, you just use the author's last name. So here, Draga, I'm not saying, I definitely didn't say you must. I was just saying if students choose to use a quote or two, it's good practice for MLA in-text citation. But you're right. I mean, when you say in my experience, Draga, you won't, your story about your translation of bread and dinner, you won't have any quotes there because that's just your experience, Cool. Anybody else questions about how to complete this discussion? Cool.
If we write more about our experience than our comments, is that bad or good?
No, for this discussion, for this type of writing, for a response, that's totally fine, right? That's why we spent almost a full class, right? Half of last class and half of today, well, more than half of today, focused on this structure at the beginning, right? Because as long as you've got these sentences where you tell me agree or disagree, you summarize the main idea from the reading, and then you start to tell me why, then whatever you say after that, Draga, is totally fine as long as it's connected to the topic, right? But these first couple sentences are very, very important. So as long as you got that, you're good. And after that, opinion, ideas, experience, all that good stuff. Parisa, little yellow hand. Parisa, you are still muted. There you go.
Sorry, Professor. My question is that we have same things you did in the last PowerPoint, or we need to use the code or no? Just rewrite our response.
No, you don't need to use the quote. If you want to use a quote or practice with a quote, the only time you could do it, the only place to do it is here at the beginning when maybe you put a quote in here when you're summarizing, paraphrasing, or quoting the main idea. But after that, just like I said to Draga, right? You don't need to quote your own ideas, your own opinion, your own experience. You know what I'm saying?
Yes. Okay, thank you.
Cool. All right. How we doing? Are we tired yet?
The due date from this discussion, Professor, when it is?
No due date.
No due date. Okay.
I'll grade it, like I said, here at the grading page. I hope to grade it before class next week. So hopefully, if you can do it before next week, that'd be great. I mean, did you? You already did, but yeah, hopefully before next week. In a perfect world, I'll grade it. I'll grade it next week. So, anybody else? We're getting tired. I can feel it even through Zoom. I'm so used to Zoom now that I'm like, I can feel it. I can feel it. I can feel it. I'll present. Here's what I'm going to do then. I had another activity for us, but I won't do the activity yet. We can do this next week, but I do want to make sure I get you ready for the book. Okay. So here's what I'm asking you to do. Before next week, I'm going to sort of, again, jump to the spoiler, right? Or go to the finish or reading strategies here. Sorry, I'm looking at the questions in the chat and it's connected to the summary and response. So hold on. Maria says, a question, Professor, is it wrong if we start the response with general sentences or should we go straight to our opinion? It's wrong to start your response with general sentences because you must start with very specific sentences. Specifically, do you agree or disagree? And what specific idea do you agree or disagree with? Okay, so you cannot just go straight to your opinion. You have to introduce the author, right? Introduce the book, the title, the author, agree or disagree, and then give me the main idea. So you must do that before you start with your opinion and experience. Cool. I saw a little yellow thumbs up. And again, Marcia, if you're not sure, you can go back. And again, that's why this slide, even though I know it's kind of ugly, this is the formula, right? This your first sentence of your response here in Canvas should look something like this. I agree or disagree with Grossman. When she argues, says, claims, and then the main idea. And then you can go into your own ideas, okay? Cool. All right.
Professor?
Yes. Yeah.
I read first 3 stories from A Map is Only One Story. The first and third one were really difficult to understand to me. The second one is fantastic. I read it twice and I listened to your audio recording, and it is so deep and very, very meaningful. But first and third, it was really, really difficult for me to understand. So I don't know if we could later, whenever, pick one of these, or,
Yep.
or we can do that.
Yeah, you know, the lessons that, well, let me, I'm gonna, I promise as I talk here, Draga, I'm gonna answer that specific question. So just to go back to what I was saying here. So before class next week, in a perfect world, finish what you have not finished, okay? And I did put 2 new lessons in Canvas, I'll show them to you. And lesson 10 and 11 are specifically about 2 stories in A Map is Only One Story. So I'm asking you to read page 1 through 78, right? So that's 6 total stories. Why we crossed the border in El Paso, that's the first story. And then how to write about your ancestral village, that's the 6th story in this sort of first section of the book, okay? Again, Draga, I'm still thinking of your question. I promise I'll go back to it after I show the assignments. Because if you look at lesson 10 and lesson 11, right, they are about 2 of these specific stories, right? So lesson 10 is about a map of lost things, right? It's a more like reading check quiz. You do get to write a little bit, but it'll help you make sure you understand sort of what happened in the story. And then there's another vocabulary activity, just like we did. Now we've done 2 of them. You know, if you did both of them, I already graded them. I love these, right? I love looking at them. I love giving you, it's a great way for me to give you feedback on sentence level grammar. And it's a good way for you to test out new vocabulary. So I hope you enjoy the vocab lessons. They're pretty easy and I love looking at them. They're really interesting. So I'm asking you to do the same thing that you've done for vocab, but about this story, Arab, past, American, present, and that starts on page 53 in the book, okay? Now again, for lesson 10 and lesson 11, if you go to Professor Jeff's course materials, just like Draga said, I have audio recording of me reading both of these stories, right? So I don't have audio for the entire book, but if I give you a lesson or a big sort of homework assignment, usually I have an audio recording, okay? So A Map of Lost Things, Arab past, American present, I have audio recording for both of those. So Draga was saying, okay, can we talk about the stories? We absolutely will talk about the stories, but just like in any college class, this is my warning to prepare you, there is never enough time to talk about every page of every book, right? So you need to sort of be thoughtful and strategic about where you spend your time, right? So if you don't have time to read, you know, 78 pages 2 times, obviously we have a lesson about A Map of Lost Things and Arab past, American present. Focus your time there, right? This is now I'm thinking of TOEFL and stuff. This is like a studying strategy, right? You got to focus. Time is precious. So spend it on the most important assignments. You know what I'm saying? So again, I think that there's something to enjoy about all of these stories, but usually I'll only ask you to do big like lessons on the best ones. Because I'm with Draga. I think not all of the stories in this book are equally good. You know, I think A Map of Lost Things is my favorite story in this book. It's beautiful. It's beautifully written. It's fantastic. All of them are interesting, and all of them will help you get practice focusing on studying, learning the structure of the first person narrative, right? But to Draga's point, right? Because I did not record myself reading all of the stories. I did record the entire hyper-focus book. But for this one, not all the stories. and you won't have a graded lesson about all of them, I empower you, I encourage you to focus your time wherever you think is most important. And then like if you love, there's a story in here, the third one, my Indian passport is a bitch, If you read this story and you love it, but we don't talk about it in class, come talk to me, send me a text, send me an email. We can set a 30-minute Zoom time to talk about it or something, because we just won't have time to do a full analysis of every single story in the book.
Unfortunately, I didn't find it very interesting. It was really difficult. I read it today. So it was just like talking about things what happened to someone to get a visa. It didn't have great importance as a literature. So I didn't get it like that. But a map is only one story. That one is really impressive.
Yeah, and again, we will definitely talk more about that one too. So, okay, so I am going to show you, we're going to finish a little bit early tonight because again, I can feel people's tiredness through the screen. But I do want to show you at least one more thing to help you get ready for reading. But before I present that to you, and now that I've said early, which usually gets people very excited, any questions about what I want you to do in Canvas? What is there in Canvas? Any questions about homework stuff before I sort of give you the map for how to read these pages? Any questions about this stuff? Okay. Perfect. So then I want to show you one more thing, like I said, a tool, a guide, a way to think about this. And again, even if you're like Draga and you're reading one of these stories and you're like, this is not that interesting, or I'm not sure what's going on, that's totally fine. But I promise every single story in this book will give you good practice understanding and analyzing, seeing this narrative writing, first person narrative writing. And just like all of the different types of writing, the different genres that we're going to talk about this semester, right? First person narrative writing has a very specific structure to it. And you will write a first person narrative. So it's very important that you understand how to recognize the structure when you're reading so that you feel comfortable using that structure when it's time to write in a few weeks, okay? So here's the basic idea. A first-person narrative is a type of creative or academic writing that expresses the relationship between the writer's experience and their identity. The writer does this through, I'm going to say here, we're going to talk about 3 styles or sort of 3 connected types of writing inside of a narrative, okay? And that means narrative writing. Narrative writing means telling a story, and they introduce a theme. They describe their thoughts, feelings, and experiences, and then they return to this theme throughout the narrative. So sort of let me show you what that looks like here. So any narrative, and again, every single story in this book is a first-person narrative, right? So in narrative writing, you get to use the first person pronouns I and we, right? If you look at the very first story in the book, I'm just looking at page 1 here. Here's the introduction. The first sentence is, when I was a child, right? For Why We Crossed the Border in El Paso. This is by an author named Victoria Blanco. It says, on the river. When I was a child in the late 1980s and 90s, I mean, right away we get the first person pronoun. And you're going to recognize this for all the stories. I, me, mine, we, our, ours. Okay? Now, the other aspect that is really important to understand about narrative writing here is that narrative writing means a story with a beginning, middle, and end, right? And that sounds very simple, but it's not always that simple, right? And I always say, usually people have a person in their family, maybe like an uncle or someone in their family who they love to talk and they love to tell stories, but maybe they don't have good stories because it's not a beginning, middle, and an end, right? It's like, oh, I got to tell you an amazing story, man. Okay, what happened? Well, this morning I got up and I got in my car and I went to the grocery store. And then when I was at the grocery store, they had all these, bags of chips. And you're like, okay, and what are you, what are you talking about? Why, who cares, right? There's no beginning, middle, and end, right? We don't understand why the chips matter or what grocery store. None of this is interesting or important because there's no story with a beginning, middle, and end, right? And we'll look at this and how different authors play with this idea of beginning, middle, and end, because even inside of one narrative, right, one story, one essay, there might be different stories. There might be different examples of a narrative, and we'll look at what that means in a moment here. Now, this narrative story with a beginning, middle, and end must have a clear connection to the theme. And I'll talk about the theme in the last slide here. Now, in addition to narrative writing, part of narrative writing is something called descriptive writing. Most of you have probably written a descriptive paragraph or essay. And descriptive writing is used throughout the writing. Descriptive writing uses a lot of specific details connected to the 5 senses. These descriptive details and this descriptive writing allows the reader to see the things that are part of the narrative, right? So, and these descriptions may be used to help connect the story with the bigger theme, right? So if I say, it was a nice day outside, this is not very descriptive, right? It was a beautiful day and the sky was bright blue. I could feel the warm sun on my skin. It was early in the morning, but the temperature was rising. I could smell the grass outside, right? Descriptive details, the color of the sky, the smell of the grass, the feeling of the light on your skin, right? These are the descriptive details that are really, really important to help your reader, and you're going to notice it when you're reading this book, to help you as the reader imagine, feel what is going on, right? Where is this narrative? What does it look like? What does it sound like? What does it smell like? All that stuff. And the last most important thing that you really, this is going to be the hardest thing. Let's just be honest. This will be the hardest part for you at first, is this idea of a theme. And the theme in a narrative writing is usually introduced early in the writing. The theme is usually returned to throughout the writing. The theme is usually a series of key words, ideas, or images that are also repeated. And this theme is often synthesized, summarized, and echoed at the end. And the theme is, I don't put this on the slide because it's not a perfect analogy, but the theme is like the thesis of one of these stories, right? The theme is the reason that this story matters, right? The theme is the deeper meaning. At the end, if you read one of these stories, hopefully, at the end you go, okay, who cares? Why is this story important? Why did the author think that it was important to tell this story, right? That is the theme. And this is really hard for students to recognize at first. But again, this is part of that critical reading and critical thinking skill that we talked about in the student learning outcomes, the student learning goals, is when you read some of these essays, I want you to start thinking about what's the deeper meaning of this story? Why is the author writing this story? And again, just to keep it really simple, who cares? Like, who cares? Why does this story have any deeper meaning? Now, I want to show you this really quickly. This was the activity we had planned, but I promise I'll let you go early. Like I said, I'm not going to do the full example. But if you go here to Professor Jeff's course materials, here's the PDF. There is a story that is something that's called a graphic novel, or maybe some people would say that this looks like a comic book, right? If you have your book in front of you, this story starts on page 120, okay? 120. And it's called Say It with Noodles. I want to show you this here at the beginning of class. And we're going to do this in more detail next week, just like we did tonight, right? Start to think about and use some real specific examples. So if we think about the template that I showed you guys here, right? That means narrative writing, descriptive writing, and thematic writing. Remember, narrative is story, beginning, middle, and end. Description is look, 5 senses, right? Look, feel, smell, touch, think. And theme is deeper meaning, who cares? Let's just look at a very quick example of this together, if I can get it back. There it is. Nope, that's not it. Sorry, you guys. Let me just open it up again. Okay. So these are just the first 2 pages. Okay, these are the first 2 pages, and we're going to do a very quick practice activity about narrative writing, descriptive writing, and thematic writing. So here's what it looks like, right? This is the only one with pictures or graphic novels. So this is the very first thing we see in this story. At the temple where my grandmother's ashes rest, we offer her oranges for our good fortune, a cup of tea, and steamed buns because she liked them. And then we see this little talk bubble, right? The incense smells like jasmine. Her kitchen smelled like frying oil. My grandmother and I didn't speak the same language. Not really, not enough. I am not part of an emotionally demonstrative family. How could we be when my first language was their 4th language, but my mother cooked? Her kitchen was a wet kitchen. The floor was concrete and usually damp. Okay, even just on these first 2 pages, I promise you, we've got examples of what I'm talking about. Narrative, descriptive, and thematic writing. Let's hope with, inshallah, si Dios quiere, what I think should be the easiest one, descriptions. Where are either examples of descriptions on this first 2 pages? Please, Liz.
Yeah, the last one, because it's talking about food, and maybe you can imagine the smells and things like that.
Where? And we don't have to imagine the smell. We get specific smells. What are the 2 smells that she writes about?
Was a good kitchen. The floor was concrete and usually damp. I don't know.
Oh, the smells are over here on the first.
Okay.
Can I?
Yeah, please, Fauzia, go ahead, get in there.
I think here it mentions like a cup of tea, orange this is the first sentence. I cannot read it that. So I mean a cup of tea here. I think this might be descriptive, like giving examples. So for grandmother.
Good.
I should say totally in chat. How do I have to say when I'm talking about another person, Professor? Said or told?
Said.
Said. Jasmine and oil.
Exactly. And Asha, I saw that in the chat. You got it, right? We get this is even these first 2 pages. We've only got maybe like 3, 4, 5 sentences. We already have examples of descriptive writing. The incense smells like jasmine. Her kitchen smelled like oil. I like the example of Fauzia's of in a story where it's no pictures, right? Maybe she would have to describe a cup of tea, right? Or she'd have to talk about the oranges. But here we get a little bit of both, right? We get a picture, but this is definitely details, right? Definitely descriptive details. And I think Liz was talking about over here on the second page, her kitchen was a wet kitchen. The floor was concrete and usually damp. Those are 2 simple sentences, you guys, but definitely descriptive writing, right? It tells me what her kitchen looked like, felt like, what the floor was made out of, right? So we get on this first page, she describes the smells that she could smell. On the second page, she describes what her grandmother's kitchen looked like and maybe even felt like, right? We get good descriptive writing here. Anybody else notice descriptions on these first 2 pages? the jasmine and the oil are hopefully, if you didn't see that at first, you're going, oh yeah, okay, yeah, descriptive. The incense smells like jasmine. That's what she wrote, right? And now again, I like using this story as an example for teaching this because notice in this first picture here, it says, at the temple where my grandmother's ashes rest, we offer her. Now we get a picture, right? But we could also use sentences to describe this temple, right? At the temple, there were tall rows of urns. There were round urns and people had pictures on the urns, right? You could write sentences that describe what we see in this picture, right? So again, you're going to see lots of examples of descriptive writing when you read this week. But just I want to show you this sort of really quickly. I want to change now, but any ideas, questions about descriptive writing? Cool. No, Jeff, you said early and it's already 22. Okay, my last thing, and then I'll let you go. Just if you had to guess, right? First of all, we know that the title of this story, the title is Say It with Noodles. And on the second page, we get this thing about, well, even on the first page, I got food and tea, oranges, her grandmother's kitchen. If you're going to make a guess about theme, and remember, theme is the deeper meaning or symbols that keep coming up in the story, what do we think might be connected to the theme just from these first couple pages? Deeper meaning.
Food.
Cooking.
I love it.
Cooking.
I love it. Cooking, food, I love it. And give me, there's one other idea that's on the second page. Food and cooking, what else? Which one?
Can I tell Mr. Jeff?
Please, Draga.
So it tells me that it seems that grandma of this girl is dead, but through food, she still lives in her life. So food reminds her of somebody who is dead, and maybe even when she doesn't think about her, but a certain smell reminds her of her grandma.
Good, nice. So really nice. Draga's already doing something nice there. She's connecting food and grandma. I love it. We definitely feel like, okay, there's some deeper meaning here. And food is connected to grandma. And what's the other thing on this second page here that is also connected to grandma? Food and?
Language?
Yes, I heard
language.
Fauzia. I think it was Fauzia, right?
Yeah, language.
Exactly. So if now again, we're going to finish up here for tonight, but if you even, I want you to start training your brain as you start to read this book. When we just looked at 2 pages, right, of this story, and you're already on the right path if you're thinking, okay, wait a minute, she's writing about food, she's writing about family and her grandma and language together. Okay, I wonder, is this going to be important? Could this be the theme? Is this the main idea, right? Now, we don't know about the narrative yet because we only started the first 2 pages, right? We can talk about that next week. But hopefully these very short and fast examples help make a little bit of sense, especially about descriptive writing. But again, the theme is just hard. So if you were like, Jeff, I don't theme and food, I don't know what you're talking about, that's fine. We're just getting some practice with it, right? But if you start to notice, what are the big sort of most important things that are being introduced at the beginning of this story, you are training your brain to look for theme, I promise. Yes, Liz, what's up?
I'm not sure, but I think that the main idea is that the grandmother teach the girl because they have different language. She teach with example. I don't know how to say. She says how to do, for example, the food, showing how to do because they maybe don't understand the word that each one says, but she speak like lovely and do the things maybe.
I love it. Good. So again, everybody who's saying this, and Sadaf in the chat said she mentioned about language as well. They didn't speak the same language. this sort of predicting, this type of guessing and sort of inferring what the story might be about. Another excellent and important skill for you to practice, okay? So we will get, like Drago was saying, we will not do this type of analysis for every story, but the next couple weeks, we are absolutely going to look at specific stories in this book. And when we look at those specific stories, we're going to do this exact type of activity, right? Where it'll show you where I'm asking you examples of the narrative, examples of description, examples of theme. So that's what we're going to do the next couple weeks, okay? So the more you can read, the better. The more comfortable you can, the better. And just be ready to do this type of analysis. And like I said, I'm asking you to analyze this in what we read, because the first major writing assignment is you are going to write narrative, right? So it's really important that you understand the expectations here. And I saw a person saying in the chat that if it's hard to raise your hand or ask a question, unmute, absolutely. Just unmute yourself or talk in the chat. So absolutely. All right, just for time, I'm a man of my word. I'm going to stop the recording and then I'll say goodbye to you guys and see if there are any questions. But for now, I'm going to stop the recording and I will see all of you next week.